So first of all, I want to say thank you to Vlamo for the cross shares. They've been great to work with. I've really enjoyed the process. The application was super easy. You just delve into some plant resources, like this book was super helpful for me. And then I took another book of just pure plants and matched them up. So I did my own rain garden design. And then I found a contractor that was going to help me dig this hole because I knew I had some super dense clay soil. I think we all do in Vadnais Heights. And so I wanted to backfill it with some decent compost and some mixed soils and such to give my plants a head start. So when I did an infiltration test, where you dig a hole and then you put some water in there and it's supposed to drain in 24 hours. And if that happens, you've got a good area to make a rain garden in. So we actually put an extra gutter in our house when we did our gutter, so we'd have extra water going into our front yard so we could capture more runoff, okay? So when the contractor came and started digging, so the infiltration was good. The next day all the water was gone in our little test site, so we thought we were good to go. So we started digging, and as it turns out, we had just a clay bathtub. So this was about a foot and a half deep, and then it rained the next day, and that's what we ended up with after 24 hours. So the thought was if we kept digging down further, we were going to punch through the clay, and it was all going to drain and everything would be great. So we went down 3.5 feet with the bulldozer and still was hitting clay. So what we ended up doing was backfilling all of that back in. So I ended up with all the clay on the bottom up on the top. And then we spread some really nice dark soil on top, and I mixed it in with extra compost and such. So we ended up making a very shallow rain garden, so nothing was going to be held in there. So your what do you call it, the outpouring or the back end, the outlet. The outlet was going to drain very quickly rather than having a deeper rain garden and holding and infiltrating. So it was just literally just going to kind of sit there. So it was going to be super shallow and go out. And the way our front yard is, you can see that it slopes down into the street. So then I got the great idea after I planted this one to go ahead and keep going. So I put a second rain garden in down this area here, and I've got a split rail fence here now, and then it drains pretty much into the lawn and then into the street. So eventually I'm going to get a third cost share grant, and I'm going to put an outlet here of another kind of swale garden, much like Suzanne's got there, to capture some more, and it's going to go like sideways before it goes down into the street. So when I get enough energy, that's what's going to happen. So am I supposed to click through? Yeah. Okay, so here I did the layout. So this is the first pit here, rain garden, flowing into the second one, which is kind of an oval right here. So these are all primarily wet plants, and then these on the other side, I decided to keep going outward as well, and these are all prairie plants here, so dry, don't need a lot of water, so it's pretty much just a straight shoot down to the street. But they assured me that I'm capturing lots of water and infiltrating lots of nutrients there too. So. And then I just, why not, kept going. I got rid of most of my grass, and I just have this left here. So, and that was last year, and then 2 years ago. So what do I do? Am I doing this right? Sorry. And then one more. Okay, so there's the split rail. And then I ended up, I got super creative, and I started doing pathways. My husband's father had all these bricks from the city of St. Paul, so I started doing walkways all the way through the garden. So I have a prairie garden here, it's a cherry tree, some more prairie here. This is all up against the house, foundation plantings, but literally I've got 2 downspouts coming into here. There's a little bridge here that was an old bench, and I've got rock, an inlet there, rock there, some rock here underneath the bench, and then this is all rain garden into an outlet, which is all rock here, and then it spills into the grass area. So it's super pretty. I do have video. I did. I was like in my car in the driveway and I just saw it just spilling out and I'm like, it's working. It's definitely flowing. And I just love it. The payoff has been incredible. So this is the second year. So third year for this area, second year for this area. And this year I've really noticed, the other thing I've done is overwintered the plants. I've left them dead and grow, or left them up and didn't cut them back so early in the spring. And I learned that a lot of pollinators will overwinter in the dead branches. And I've really seen the payoff this year. I left them up until late spring. And even when I did cut them down, I threw them in the backyard, so they were just kind of laying there on the side underneath some pine trees. And if the moths or butterflies were still emerging, they were able to, because I didn't throw them away or compost them. And the fireflies have been incredible around the pond in the backyard this year, and also the moth population, both the saucer size, hand size moths, and then the smaller ones have just been everywhere. The bees, I haven't seen all that many just yet, but a lot of the smaller ones, not necessarily the big bumblebees, but the pollinators have just been just going nuts, and it's just wonderful to see. It's definitely a labor of love. It's not an easy fix for low maintenance. This is not a low maintenance project. And it's one of those things where you just walk through your garden, and instead of looking at green grass and going, oh, that's interesting, you're just like astounded by the coolness that you're creating in your front yard. And we absolutely love it. My husband's really good at weeding, and that's kind of his after work therapy and like downtime. And so that's always helpful too. It's not just one person trying to maintain a huge garden like that too. So yeah, it's been lots of fun. Oh, I have more. So this is flowering. Shows you the outlet here into the grass and lots of the prairie plants. I'm still struggling to find some early bloomers, so it looks a little bit more interesting in the very early spring. It's super green, when you cut everything down. So I'm trying to get a little bit more creative here. But this is the second year when I built out that second rain garden there, and just started getting rid of all that grass. It's wonderful. And then we got this year too. We got an electric lawnmower that is battery powered instead of the cord that I had to drag around the. So yeah, it's very cool, and they work really well. And especially, I call it just my dandelion slayer, and it's so easy to whip out and just like start up and just mow them down.
This is my rain garden right here I'm over at the driveway looking into it. So I've inherited this because we bought a house that had been built on a swampy area. And the whole neighborhood flooded one year. It was before we ever lived there, but the township came in and just dug this big old ditch right there in my front yard. And when we bought the house, it was a great big, at the edge here, there was a big cottonwood tree. The first thing I did was cut that thing down. And then I just tried to mow it, had grass in there, and then my lawnmower just kept being more and more challenging, going up and down this little hill. So I said, well, I could beautify this and turn it into a rain garden, right? So I knew very little about rain gardens, but the township had put a drain in, and then they came in and we requested a cover for it. So they came in and gave us a cover, and then I just decided to put the landscape rocks around it so that we had so much water flowing into it that I wanted it to go. It goes right into the sewer, which drains to the lake. So we've got a lot of drainage from our backyard, frequently floods, and comes around to the front yard. Here's the big drain pipe that comes underneath the driveway. Culvert. And then there's, and go back to the other one. And then here's, the house has a lot of drainage that comes down, and we built, I put a pipe underneath the sidewalk, which drains down into this little area here and comes down into here. and all of that collects, and then the other neighbor, their yard drains into our yard. So we've got the low spot for the entire neighborhood. So I just decided to put the flagstone to get that water down the drain as quickly as I could. And so I learned from coming to Vlamo that what you want to do is slow that water down so it'll go back into the earth. So I'm now trying to pull up just some of the stones and plant more plants down into the center of it so it'll slow that water down. And it does, and having just pulled millions of weeds up, you realize that Mother Nature does abhor a vacuum, and that Mother Nature will fill in all of the areas between the stones with Creeping Charlie and many other things. But Creeping Charlie does have its benefit of holding the soil in place. So I'm always aware that if I pull too much out of this area around these daylilies, that that soil could erode and go right down into the bottom there, which I don't want to happen.